All right, welcome back to the North Carolina Plumbing Code class. We're in chapter 10. It covers traps, interceptors, and separators. So far we've been over chapter 2 with all the definitions that we covered in that chapter. And then chapter 3, general regulations, where we talked about nail plates, which is just physical protection of the pipe, protection of the pipe from freezing, how deep in the ground do we need to bury water lines, drain lines. We talked about excavating and backfill. All that information was in chapter 3. Pipe supports, dealing with how maximum distance between hangers on our pipes. All that in chapter 3. Then in chapter 4, we dealt with fixtures, faucets, and fixture fittings. We talked about minimum facility requirements in that chapter, saying for your house, what fixtures are required to be in there. In all the different classifications, whether we're talking about a stadium, whether we're talking about you covered malls, what are the minimum facility requirements? And then we looked at all the different various fixtures and looked at minimum trap sizes with those and everything else that fell under those various fixtures. Chapter 5, we got covered water heaters. In that chapter, we talked about maximum temperatures allowed from the water heaters. We talked about safety devices on those water heaters. When do you need to put a pan under one? Where do you run the drain coming off the pan? Where's a water heater allowed to be installed, whether it's electric or gas? Can we put them in attics? Can we put them in crawl spaces? Can we suspend them? All that sort of stuff. It was in chapter 5. Chapter 6, with the water supply and distribution, we covered all. When do you need to use? When do we need to install a pressure reducing valve? What's our water service, water distribution piping have to be rated for? A lot of all that information about anything with the water lines was in chapter 6. Chapter 7 was the sanitary drainage. And we covered minimum slope requirements on our pipes. We looked at table 709.1, which gave us a whole list of various fixtures. And then 2 columns beside that gave us minimum trap sizes and also DFU values for those various fixtures. That was in chapter 7. Chapter 8 was indirect and special waste. And we covered as far as when can you use indirect waste pipes, the sizing of those, air gaps, air breaks, that information. A piece of information that we use a lot when we're plumbing up our residential homes, as far as that, is stand pipes. As far as plumbing up a stand pipe for a clothes washer connection, and we looked at all the minimum and maximum heights of a stand pipe. 18 to 48 inches. What would be the top of the standpipe or the bottom of the washer box from the base of the clothes washer? There's 34 inches. So all that information was found there in chapter 8. And then we just covered the past 2 weeks. We covered part 1 and part 2 of chapter 9, which covered vents. We talked about individual vents, common vents. We looked at wet venting, vertical wet venting, circuit venting, relief vents as they relate to the circuit vent, waste stack venting. So all that information was chapter 9. Now we're into chapter 10, traps, interceptors, and separators. This week's going to be a lot shorter for you. We're covering pages 83, 84, and 85 and that's the length of the chapter on that. And then we'll have a quiz here. Let's see. I was pulling out that quiz, which I will review for. Looks like we got a 10-question true or false that I will have posted for you. Okay, let's jump into just looking at some of the information in the chapter, and then we will review for that quiz. And hopefully this will be a little bit quicker and easier one for you. So the scope of this chapter, found on page 83, this chapter shall govern the materials and installation of traps, interceptors, and separators. Fixture traps. Each plumbing fixture shall be separately trapped by a liquid seal trap, except as otherwise permitted by this code. The vertical distance from the fixture outlet to the trap wheel should not exceed 24 inches, and the horizontal distance shall not exceed 30 inches, measured from the center line of the fixture outlet to the center line of the inlet of the trap. The height of the clothes washer standpipe above the trap shall conform to section 802.3.3. And it says also a fixture shall not be double trapped. So, saying standpipes, that's not included in this. So when you look at the information, it says from the outlet of a fixture, let's just say it's a lavatory sink, and you come down, we said the maximum vertical distance from the fixture outlet to the trap weir. The trap weir is right where that water is going to come out of the dip of the trap and start to run down the horizontal part. That's the trap weir. This maximum vertical distance, maximum of 24 inches. Now, that does not apply to this washer standpipe. If you have a washer box and it comes down and has a trap like this, and this is for your clothes washer, let's just say that was a lavatory. This was your clothes washer. Remember, that does not go a maximum distance of here. If you went over to chapter 8, which we just talked about, indirect and special waste, this is an indirect waste connection. Your hose will hang over into this pipe, and then this is 18 to 48 inches is your minimum and maximum on that, not the 24 inches as previously covered in chapter 8 with indirect and special waste. We also said the maximum, the horizontal distance cannot exceed 30 inches. So if we are putting, and it will also tell us in a little bit that the maximum number of that we can have surface through one trap is 3 fixtures through one trap. But if you're going to do a continuous waste and you have maybe just even look at your 2-bowl sink. If as long as you don't have more than 30 inches of spread, you could come down and have this one tee into this line and be served by one trap, okay? But we've got to have from the center of this to the center here where we're going, that is going to be a maximum of 30 inches between those two right there, okay? And that's what it's talking about on that. Let's see what else. It also says we can't double trap something. Don't double trap it. Now, we did talk about in chapter 8 that you could take a washer standpipe and you could come into the standpipe and come out and connect for a laundry sink, okay? So if we did that and we have a sink sitting here, maybe it's even just one of those kind of freestanding sinks, and we plumb that, we're not supposed to come down and put a trap on that because then it's running from a trap into the standpipe, which is going into another trap. So that's a double trap. We should not have a trap on that fixture. Now, it also has a maximum distance of 30 inches on this. Remember in chapter 3, it says you could tie into there as long as the center from the center of this connection over into the standpipe is not more than 30 inches on that. So we're not allowed to double trap it. Okay. It does have some exceptions. This section shall not apply to fixtures with integral traps. So can you think of a fixture that has an integral trap? First of all, you might be saying integral. What does that mean? Integral, it built into it. So is there a trap that's already built into the fixture itself? Can you think of one of those? And hopefully probably the one that you're thinking of is maybe the water closet, the toilet, that you've got a built-in trap inside there. Does not apply to that. Number 2, a combination plumbing fixture or up to 3 similar fixtures shall be permitted to be installed on one trap, provided that one compartment is not more than 6 inches deeper than the other compartment, and the waste outlets are not more than 30 inches apart. Once again, 30 inches apart from center. And you can combine them as long as one sink, the height difference between the bottoms are not more than 6 inches. Okay. It also says in number 3 that the grease interceptor intended to serve as a fixture trap in accordance with the manufacturer's installation instructions shall be permitted to serve as the trap for a single fixture or a combination sink of not more than 3 compartments where the vertical distance from the fixture outlet to the inlet of the interceptor does not exceed 30 inches, and the developed length of the waste pipe from the most upstream fixture outlet to the inlet of the interceptor does not exceed 60 inches. Let's draw a little picture of that. Okay, so maybe you've got a restaurant here, and you've got you could have up to let's just say we got a 3-compartment big stainless three compartment sinks here. Oh, I should have drawn something a little different. Okay, anyway, and then on the cabinet or this shelf underneath this big stainless steel sink thing that they have here, maybe we have a grease interceptor there. Okay, and they said in the design this is allowed to be. This interceptor is going to be serving as the fixture trap, and it says it can do that. It says not more than a 3-compartment sink, okay, where the vertical distance from the fixture outlet to the inlet of the interceptor does not exceed 30 inches. So a vertical distance, a vertical drop of not more than 30 inches, and the developed length of the waste pipe from the most upstream fixture outlet to the inlet of the interceptor does not exceed 60. So if we have an inlet of the interceptor here, okay, well, let's take that inlet, let's run it over. As long as from the most upstream one, the total developed length, so you've got to measure it down, and then you've got to measure over. You add those two together, and as long as that's not more than 60 inches away, you're okay. Now, what you can do is just to say, oh boy, we're pushing it right at 60, or we're a little over. We'll just slide that thing over, plumb these things down into where your most upstream is, and you can normally make that work. Okay. The connection of a laundry tray, complying with section 802.3.3. Okay. There's an exception there. Okay, let's see. Design of traps. Let's see what we have. The fixture shall be self-scouring, means self-cleaning out, not have interior partitions, except where such traps are integral with the fixture or where such traps are constructed of approved material that is resistant to corrosion and degradation. Slip joints. So if you're taking what the slip joint, it has like a slip nut and washer. Probably most of you, but you look under your sink and it's got a nut that you can unscrew and pull the trap apart. Those are slip nuts and washers is what they're talking about. Slip joints shall be made with an approved elastomeric gasket and shall be installed only on the trap inlet, trap outlet, and within the trap seal. Okay, prohibited traps. Prohibited meaning these are not allowed. We can't use traps that depend on moving parts to maintain the seal, bell traps, crown vented traps, traps not integral with the fixture, and that depend on interior partitions for the seal, except those traps constructed of an approved material that is resistant to corrosion and degradation, S-traps and drum traps. Okay, with the exception of the drum traps being used as solids interceptors and drum traps serving chemical waste systems shall not be prohibited. The trap seal. Now we've looked at P-traps before. And we've named the parts of the trap. We have the trap inlet. We have the trap outlet. Then this part of the trap is called the trap dip, which we have the top of the dip. And then we have the bottom of the dip. And then the whole upper is called the trap crown. And of the crown of the trap. And then we have the crown weir of the trap is right where it crests over on the bottom. Now it says that the trap seal. So we got to know what parts of the trap make up the trap seal. Between the crown weir and the top of the dip. Okay, right there. This area of the trap makes up the trap seal. Right there. The trap seal. This right here tells us that the trap seal must be between 2 to 4 inches on that. Okay. That's the 1002.4. It says 2 to 4 inches and not more than 4 inches or deeper for special designs relating to accessible fixtures. Trap seal protection. You have to protect that trap seal. We have trap seal primers. What that will do is end up taking when we have water that is we've got where we could lose the water out of this trap because it might evaporate out or something like that. If it's not in a normal location, it's going to be continued to be washed. You have to put a trap. You're going to have a trap seal primer. They got different styles on that. You might notice some of them are as simple as you've got a floor drain that's not going to have that's not going to have water in it to keep that trap seal protected. So you might have a sink over here. It's got a drain on that. It is going to get used quite a bit, and it might have a little connection off the tailpiece of that with a tube that runs over and goes into the inlet part of the floor drain, which is going to take a little. So every time they use a little water in that sink, it just drains through this tube and goes down over and starts to help keep that that trap seal full, okay, or primed. Okay, let's size of the fixture traps. How are you going to size them? Look back at table 709.1 in chapter 7. Building traps, building or house traps shall be prohibited. They used to do that. It used to have a whole house trap on the whole building. Let's see, trap setting and protection. Let me jump over here. Not right now. I'll catch you in a minute. Okay, interceptors and separators. Interceptors and separators. Where are they required? Interceptors and separators shall be provided to prevent the discharge of oil, grease, sand, and other substances harmful or hazardous to the public sewer, the private sewage system, or the sewage treatment plant or processes. Okay, so we don't want, let's just say we've got a garage or something there, and it's got a drain where stuff you could be changing oil and different things like that. You don't want that to enter into the drainage system. So we want to separate the oils, the flammable liquids, and we want to get all that out of there. Okay. If you've got car washes that have got underbody car wash where it's going to spray up and clean that stuff, you might have it. You need to be able to separate that stuff out. Let's see. Who does the approving of this? The local utility or health department requirements. Okay. You install the stuff with the manufacturer's instructions, the requirements of the section based on the anticipated conditions of use. Wastes that do not require treatment or separation shall not be discharged into any separator or interceptor or separator. You're going to have to separate the two. So if you can't just say, hey, well, I'm going to put everything going through the same line and just pass everything through this interceptor or separator. No, only what's gonna be having the oil, the flammable liquids, whatever you got in that's gonna route through it separate. So we did a class project. We plumbed up a church, and they had like a kitchen. If this was the front of it, we had a big kitchen down in this corner, and so we had all those sinks that might have oil and things like that, the grease. And so we had that line, and all this kitchen came out here, and it ran through, okay, that grease interceptor, okay, and then on the outlet. So this was the inlet that was treated. We had men's and women's bathrooms, and we popped that through, and that ran down, and that came up, and maybe went in and caught another bathroom, came down along this, but we didn't pop it and connect the two in here. On the outlet, as that went down, we came in beyond that area and passed it to. So only what was needing the treatment through that kitchen area was coming through that interceptor. Okay, let's see what else we got. Grease interceptors and automatic grease removal devices required. A grease interceptor or automatic grease removal device should be required to receive the drainage from fixtures and equipment with grease-laden waste located in food preparation areas, such as restaurants, hotel kitchens, hospitals, school kitchens, bars, factory, cafeterias, and clubs. Fixtures and equipment shall include pot sinks, pre-rinse sinks, soup kettles, or similar devices, wok stations, floor drains or sinks into which kettles are drained, automatic hood wash units, and dishwashers without pre-rinse sinks. Grease interceptors and automatic grease removal devices shall receive waste only from fixtures and equipment that allow fats, oils, or greases to be discharged. Where lack of space or other constraints prevent the installation or requirement of a grease interceptor, one or more grease interceptors may be permitted to be installed on or above the floor and upstream of an existing grease interceptor. So, like I showed in that one, to say most of the time you're going to have a big one you might have outside and take care of all that, and sometimes you might see compartment sinks, and they said it may be approved to where you can get one put up underneath there. Excuse me. Grease interceptors and automatic grease removal devices not required. Shall not be required for individual dwelling units or any private living quarters. So it's just saying this is all commercial stuff. It's not on your home. That's just going to be good. Hopefully, get some good plumbing knowledge that somebody has taught the homeowner at one point, or otherwise you might be out there drain cleaning their drains, and then you can advise them, hey, next time you fry something up, or if you got a lot of oils and grease that is, that you're cooking with, don't just dump that down your sink drain. Okay, that's going to clog those drains right up and cause you problems. So just maybe you might need to do a little bit of educating the homeowner there if that's what you're noticing what they're doing. But because we don't have to put anything, but hopefully they should be cleaning that out, dump it in a little jar where they can let that solidify, and then end up throwing that out. All right. That table there is grease interceptor capacity 1003.3.4.1. It gives you a total flow through rate in gallons per minute in there, and then they give you a grease retention capacity in pounds on that. Okay, I'm going to let you read a good bit of that, the next section on your own, just to save me from having to just go through and just read that to you. If you have any questions as you do some of this reading and want to let me know, just let me know. Where's oil separators required? 1003.4 on page 85 at repair garages where floor or trench drains are provided, car washing facilities, factories where oily and flammable liquid wastes are produced, and oil separators shall be installed into which oil-bearing, grease-bearing, or flammable waste shall be discharged before emptying until the building drainage system or other point of disposal. The exception, an oil separator is not required in hydraulic elevator pits where an approved alarm system is installed. Elevator sump pits with oil minder pumps shall discharge the oil into a temporary storage tank. Such alarm systems shall not terminate the operation of pumps utilized to maintain emergency operation of the elevator by firefighters. On the main floor level of the Strickland building, look at the bottom of that. When the elevator goes up, look down into the bottom of that elevator shaft, and you can see underneath there. Say, hey, did they have a drain under there? Do they have an alarm under on that? Check it out. Okay. Separation of liquids: a mixture or treated or untreated light and heavy liquids with various specific gravities should be separated in an approved receptacle. Let's see. Then we talk about garage and service stations, sand interceptors. Sand and similar interceptors for heavy solids should be designed and located as to be provided with ready access for cleaning, and shall have a water seal of not less than 6 inches. Okay. Ready access, and we've talked about the difference between having ready access and access to something. And if you're a little unclear about it, go back to your chapter 2 in definitions and look those up. Clothes washer discharge interceptors. Clothes washers shall discharge through an interceptor that is provided with a wire basket or similar device, removable for cleaning, that prevents passage into the drainage system of solids a ½ inch or larger in size. Strings, rags, buttons, and other materials detrimental to the public sewage system. The exceptions being your clothes washer and individually dwelling units. So if you've got your own clothes washer at the house, you don't have to have that on there. Not be required to discharge through an interceptor. A single clothes washer designed for use in individual dwelling units and installed in a location other than an individual dwelling unit shall not be required to discharge through an interceptor. Then we do have some stuff as far as bottling establishments, slaughterhouses, the venting of interceptors and separators. So if we're talking about venting, it says refer back to some venting methods in Chapter 9. Access and maintenance of interceptors and separators. Access shall be provided to each interceptor and separator for service and maintenance. This one just says it doesn't say ready access. So potentially you could have something up a little bit higher to where you have to get out a ladder to service that. Interceptors and separators shall be maintained by periodic removal of accumulated grease, scum, oil, and other floating substances and solids deposited in the interceptor or separator. And what a fun job that is. I mean, that would be, you'd love to just get a job doing nothing but full-time cleaning out grease, interceptors, and separators. That would be a great job to have right there. Okay, let's see. Let's look over and see what we got for some questions. Question number 1. It's going to be a 10-question quiz, true or false. Question number 1. The maximum vertical distance allowed from the fixture outlet to the trap weir is 24 inches. Is that a true or false statement? Maximum vertical distance from the fixture outlet to the trap weir, 24 inches. And that is oh, yeah. Well, I'll let you look that up. That was one of the first things we covered. Question number 2. A grease trap can never serve as a fixture trap. A grease trap can never serve as a fixture trap. Is that a true or false statement? Or did we cover that it could be if the manufacturer says it and it gives you some distances from that? True or false? A grease trap can never serve as a fixture trap. Question 3. A bell trap is an acceptable trap. Is a bell trap, is that a trap that is allowed? True or false? Question 4. The minimum depth of a liquid seal provided by a fixture trap is 2 inches. The minimum depth of the trap seal is 2 inches. True or false? Question number 5. A fixture trap is allowed to be larger than the drainage pipe into which the trap discharges. A fixture trap is allowed to be larger than the drainage pipe into which the trap discharges. Is that true or false? And that was one that I did not cover, read right over, but you should be able to think that through and say, what is that question? The fixture trap. Let's look at that. Fixture trap. All right, what fixture we got? Let's got a lavatory. Let's come down and put a fixture trap on that. And it says, can the fixture trap, that right there, can that be larger than the drainage pipe into it than this drain pipe? So we have that thing coming out as like a 2-inch trap and then reduce it down and do an 1.5 inch pipe. Is that allowed? Can we reduce in the direction of flow? We should be able to do that. In Chapter 7, we talked that you cannot reduce in the direction of flow. All right, number 6. Regular wastewater is allowed to be discharged into an interceptor, and we did cover that. Is regular wastewater, is that allowed to be discharged into that interceptor? True or false? Question 7. It is acceptable to install an interceptor in a location where a ladder will be needed to service or maintain it. And that was one of the last things we covered. And did it say that it had to have access to that, or did it say that it had to have ready access? What was the difference between access and ready access? And then which one says that you got to have a ladder or not have a ladder? So you might have to back up the video and watch the very little end part, or put some thought into it and go hunt that information down. Okay, number 8. An oil separator needs to be installed in locations where oily and flammable liquid wastes are produced. Is that true or false? An oil separator needs to be installed in locations where oily and flammable liquid wastes are produced. Number 9, a 2-inch water seal is required on a sand interceptor. And that was, we talked about sand interceptors close to the end there on 1003.5. And in that, did it say that it needed a 2-inch water seal is required? Is that a true or false statement? And the last one, question 10, a trap seal primer is needed when a trap seal is subject to loss by evaporation. And we did mention that. I think that was about the time I was getting interrupted there a little bit. But having that trap with a trap seal, when that is in a place where it's going to be subject to that trap, that water evaporating out of the trap, saying that under those circumstances, you need to have a trap seal primer on that. Was that true or false? And you would want to keep that. We've got to keep those trap seals primed on that. All right. Got any questions? Let me know. So once you watch this video, you are ready to take the quiz. So log into the quiz on your Blackboard and knock that thing out. And I hope you all do really well on it. Say, if you got any questions, let me know. Look forward to seeing you next time.